Welcome to the Emerging Startup at the Coffee Conversation Show, powered by the Emerging India Forum TIF and a tech partner, Prime Infotech Solution. Theme is from corporate leader to startup visionary. We have with us Sumeet Ahuja, CEO and founder of Evoke Impact. Sumit epitomizes the spirit of innovation and leadership with an illustrious career spanning global giants like PayPal, Circle, and AT&T. Sumit has been instrumental in shaping transformative products, driving fintech strategies, and mentoring startups to success. His knack for navigating disruptive technologies like blockchain and Web3 makes him a force to reckon with in the startup ecosystem. Beyond his professional triumphs, Sumit is a mentor, educator, and advocate for bringing global skill gaps. So, friends, this will be a lovely conversation with an Indian who's now based in San Francisco. And this is morning time. And for me, it is now go beyond 9. And let's, it will be, what do you say, engaging conversation on, what do you say, Saturday, Tuesday, late, uh, sorry, at 9 p.m. for me and for Sumit, uh, early morning. So, looking at the time zones, let's bring our chat to the conversation table. So, Sumit, welcome to today's Coffee
Thank
Conversation
you.
special episode.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And it's good to have some coffee with you.
Okay. So, let me explain you the format, Sumit. There are, you must be aware of the two rounds, the professional and the personal round. But there is a surprise rapid fire round for which you have
Okay.
to be pretty funny and quick. So, you will get to win this book, Niche Marketing.
Okay. Got it.
It will be delivered to your address in US. So,
Thank you.
friends, I'm Lion Amir Virani, host at Coffee Conversation, and a legal tech evangelist at Prime Infotech Solution, author of 15 books. We help law firms, corporate legal, startups, SMEs with world-class technology, software licensing, and tech training solutions. So, my first question, Sumit, how has your journey been till date?
How's my journey built to date? It's been very interesting. It's been very, I would say, non-linear. I always say that there is you propose and God disposes is a big saying. But I think, for me, it's been a journey which, in many ways, was not something I envisioned fully when I started off in my career. There are some things that you plan, some things that you don't plan. But the one thing I would say in the last 5 to 7 years, I realized the power of just the serendipity of how things unfold and how you accept and move forward. And things like I said, the power of non-linearity. So I think for me, starting right after school, getting into engineering, getting to a typical path with a job in the tech world, going from one industry to the other, and so on. It's built from one phase to the other. So I'm grateful for the way it's panned out. And I've been in the product space for 25 plus years in 4 or 5 industries, and all in very disruptive phases of innovation. I think that's the common theme across the board. A lot of things you'll see on my resume, a lot of things I've done, you'll say, why did you do this? This doesn't make sense, or this is not connected. But if you really look back behind it, the essence of it is that everything is connected because I like disruption. I don't like status quo. And that theme continued. And then fast forward to maybe 2019, 2020 is when I took the plunge and I said, you know what, I'm just going to go out on my own, start my own company. So the journey has been, like I said, non-linear, very rewarding with a lot of ups and downs, but always with the hope of making an impact. And hence the company that I have is called, Evoke Impact.
Wow. Okay. I'm a little curious. What is story behind naming of your startup Evoke Impact, and how has the journey been from working in a corporate now leading your startup for disruptive technologies?
Yeah, for some reason, the word evoke has always stuck in my head throughout for many reasons. And evoke meaning that you're trying to get something to happen. You're trying to make an influence to initiate something. And I would say, in the last, let's say, it's been a long career, 25 years, but I would say in the last 10 to 14 years, I've worked for some pretty big brand names in fintech, in blockchain, in some regulated industries. The promise has always been that we want to bring, financial freedom to the masses. We want to make an impact. We want to create, democratize financial services and so on. Um, and I've gone from a large company, which is very, very slow and stodgy like AT&T, to a new age company like PayPal, to the bleeding edge of technology at Circle. The promise remained the same that we're going to change the world, right? And they have, no doubt about it. But what I did see is that everybody has been talking about, bridging the financial divide and so on, but no one was talking about bridging the skills divide. And if you look at the economies around the world, whether it's India, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, Latin America, that's like 5 billion people plus. So I can give you all the money you want, but if the skills don't exist in your demographics, there will be a social uprising. There will be a socioeconomic divide. So over the last few years, this is something that stuck in my head, and I wanted to make a difference in that space to bridge that gap, to evoke that impact in organizations and individuals and teams, profits, for-profit companies, nonprofits, startups, to really take that step forward to prosper together globally. I'm a firm believer that, we're all connected. We are part of the same fabric across the world. And if we don't prosper together, when someone gets left behind, there will be some kind of a disparity that which we won't want. So that led to this whole notion of bringing my expertise in the product and tech space and my passion for, giving back so that I can evoke an impact in organizations to make a difference. So this is a whole series of thinking behind, the name of the company. And the journey obviously has been very interesting as a true startup. There's no one day that's similar to the other. One day in the morning you're doing a podcast with, a fantastic people like yourself, and in the night you're writing invoices and trying to collect money from your customers. So it varies, and in the middle of all of this, you're trying to keep up with AI and you're trying to build businesses. So it's fantastic. I would not trade anything for what I've done, and I hope that, I truly am able to make that impact that I'm seeking. Yeah, so like I said, this all these forces of nature and the things happening around really ask me, do you really want to do what you're doing in the corporate side, or do you want to do something that really appeals to you from a passion perspective? And like I said, seeing all the things I'd seen back at the large companies where they're promising financial inclusion and it's going to be around, democratizing financial services, and all of that has happened. But I think the one piece that gets missed a lot and left behind is around skills training. And if you look around the world, in India, in Southeast Asia, the Middle East, in Latin America, which is, close to 5 billion people, what's really needed on top of all of this is to make sure that these demographics, the younger population, which is in the 20s and 30s, is ready for the next 4, 5, 8, 10, 20 years. And that's where skills training and making sure that they are able to groom with the future is important. So I took my expertise in the product side, all the things I've done in the last 20, 25 years, and I said, you know what, let me focus on these locations and geographies and give back the best I can. So that's how the whole idea behind Evoke Impact was born, to really drive that influence, to drive that action and bias, to have an impact in communities, and really equip the world for the future. And of course, not to mention what's happening with AI and so on. But that's the intention behind this. And through the company that we have now, there's multiple components which we can talk about later. But the entire purpose and mission behind this is to drive prosperity for all through the work that we do. Because if we don't have anybody prospering at any time, or even one section of the population not, it will have an impact. We're all extremely interconnected. So it's incumbent on us to drive prosperity for all.
Okay. Sumit, what's your process for identifying skill gaps in emerging markets? And how does Evoke Impact bridge those gaps?
Yeah, so for us, when we started to see some trends, if you will, going on across the world. And some of these things you recognize and see through your work in your corporate careers. Some of it is because you're ingesting so much information across the board, and there is no dearth of information. And for me, I guess I am a news junkie. I am an, an information junkie. For me, I consume a lot of information about not just, corporates and companies and startups, but also about history and what's happening with the migration patterns, what's happening with the socioeconomic behavior and consumer behavior across the world. And of course, I was actually born in the Middle East. I lived there for many years. I was in India, obviously, and then I've been in the US and in the Western world for most of my life. So I've had a chance to really sink my teeth into the diverse set of influencing factors globally, and I find that's very fascinating. So for me, all this information around, what's going on across the world, around investment patterns, which governments are moving towards what particular policies. So all of those things come together to kind of build this jigsaw puzzle for you, right? And you got to piece it together. And the one thing that I began to do is I started talking to a lot of people, my trusted network with, whom you can debate issues, with whom you can test and validate your hypotheses. So for me, it became clear through the things I do, through the research I've done, all the information I have, through my own career, that this is an area around, skills gap, which is becoming bigger and bigger and larger. But at the same time, it is being invested in. There is demand for doing this. It makes sense to pursue something that you want to do, but also as a business that you want to do something that there's a demand for. So that's how we were, looking closely and seeing what regions to go into, and also what specifically in the regions is the ask. And that's why we got to focus on what we do at Evoke Impact.
Wow. So, Sumit, how do you approach innovation and risk taking while building products for disruptive industries like Web3 and FinTech?
Oh wow, that's a good question. It's interesting that depending on where you are in which company, that answer can be a little bit different. And I will admit that, my risk-taking appetite within the corporate confines and my approach to taking that risk evolved over the years. I'd be lying if I said that I was born as a risk taker. I was born and as an innovator. I think some of those things evolve over time. But for me, I would say, my roles across, telecom, mobile, fintech, AI, blockchain, have all been really at the cutting edge of technology, even though I was working for some companies that are a little bit much older. And my role as a product leader, as an innovator, is to push the limit. It is to test how far I can get to serve use cases and clients and customers and ecosystems um, before the legal team comes in, or before the policymakers come in, or before the regulators come in and say, "Oh, you can or cannot do this." So my job is not to restrict and build boundary walls around myself. My job and my passion is to serve the customers and consumers. So my approach towards innovation and launching products in these disruptive spaces is one, take it to the limit, right? And of course, the second thing, which is equally important, is that you can innovate all you want and take all the risks you want, but you can't be foolish about it, right? Because that would be a recipe for failure. And funnily, most of the places where I have worked are typically regulated industries, telecom, mobile, fintech, financial services. So you need to be smart that the things you're trying to do also have a true business impact. Innovation for the heck of innovation is just wasted money, resources, and time. And sometimes building something too fast, too quick, too soon for the market, it doesn't work. So it's all of these factors coming together. But my approach has been in the last few years was really um, to push the limit to see how far we can get. And at the same time, and very important, is I'm a firm believer that today you cannot and you should not build products, technologies alone. There's a whole ecosystem that you have to live in, use, and serve. So a lot of the things that you would do from an innovation and a risk-taking perspective need to be balanced with who's in your ecosystem. Who are your service providers, who are your vendors, who are your customers, who are the developers and engineers, internal, external stakeholders, all of those. So it's a multifaceted way of approaching an issue, a problem. But my leading driver for approaching innovation and products in these spaces, you've got to think a little bit beyond just your sandbox that you play in. And I like to do that by using all the resources and ecosystems around me.
Wow. Okay. Uh, so my next question, Sumit, what qualities do you believe are essential for leaders driving innovation in today's fast-paced tech landscape?
Yeah, again, similar to the previous question, I feel that things just are changing so quickly that the qualities that you needed back in, when I was growing up as a kid in the late 80s and 90s, and then I got in my career in the 2000s, and now we're in the 2020s, those set of things are not static, and today, especially today, I think for the leaders, there's a few things that I tend to emulate. I look for those things to do myself, and in others. And yes, there's, technical capabilities. There's, being savvy with, all the things that are happening in the tech world with AI and all of those things matter at a functional level. But I think what's getting left behind a lot is mental and physical resilience. If you look around and see what's happening in the business world, whether it's, startup, big company, small company, nonprofits, call it what you may, um, mental and physical resilience to have that, the stamina to see through things without getting distracted by the next shiny object, that's missing. And that is one thing which, I'm guilty of as well. There's so much going on, you get distracted. But I think that's one thing that is really, really important is that just stability and being, focused. So I would say, mental, physical resilience with that stamina, the ability to really filter the signal from the noise. I'm sure this happens in your world as well, Amir, in the legal space. There's so much going on all the time, right? There's new technologies, but also new policies and regulations, new industries, new sets of rules by new competitors and so on. And so the same thing happens here with my work. I have to be able to focus, choose to focus, and prioritize what I'm going to focus on. Um, I would also say, for me, you have to have a mindset to drive clarity. As a leader, there's people who are counting on you, and not just your employees, but also your customers, your vendors, your stakeholders, your clients. And I think leaders, it's really critical for them to drive clarity so that everybody around you can focus, can prioritize, can build that mental and physical resilience, and operate without any hurdles. So I think those things, again, they are not your typical, you need to know AI, or you need to be an engineer, or you need to be a business person. But these are some of the things that I look for in a leader today, and obviously try to do all those things in myself as well.
Wow, beautiful. Okay. So, Sumit, my next question. How has your leadership style evolved over the years?
A lot, I would say. Some things I would say you learn on the job, some things you get through, getting gray hair. It's a combination of all. But I would say, right from the beginning, this whole notion about are leaders born or, are they created? It's a fascinating topic. And, I would say that it's a combination of both. Um, and the creation of leaders happens obviously by going through experiences, by going through hurdles, by, as I say, you have to go through the fire to really understand how hard it is. So for me, I would say, going back to the previous things we talked about, Amir, um, it's not been a straight path for me to go from where I was as, a child to where I am, you know, quote unquote successful in my career. There's been a lot of detours. There's been a lot of hurdles along the way. There's been hard decisions personally, professionally, and so on. So the leadership style has evolved from being this single-minded person who wants to do things only for himself, for his own good, to now where I realize that, I am only as good as what my team is at. So my role becomes to make one plus one greater than two, right? Anybody can do one plus one equals two. So I would say that the my style has evolved from being very ambitious, driven to having those, but also at the same time realizing that, my success is not dependent just on me. It also depends on others, and it's my responsibility to make others successful. And you have responsibilities back to your customer base and who you're serving. But my fundamental, um, I guess, value or principle that I go by is that I'm only as good as the people I'm serving. So, some people call it servant leadership, and I'm a firm believer, and I try to, sustain that throughout my career now is that servant leadership model.
Wow. Okay. So, Sumit, you work extensively in blockchain and fintech. How do you see these technologies evolving in the next 5 years?
It's a crazy world. I mean, the way we're seeing things change and move, obviously now we're talking about AI a lot. And you wake up in the morning and the whole scenario has changed. And it was the same thing with the blockchain a couple of years ago when, it's like 3, 4, 5 years ago, this is when it really picked up steam. And right now we're talking about AI, but blockchain is absolutely a critical component of the um, technical infrastructure of the world, of the way the world is going to operate in the future. And if you look at fintech and blockchain, it's interesting that it's almost like a marriage made in heaven, right? From the technology aspect and then from the promise of fintech, right? If you really think about fintech, what is the promise fundamentally? It was to really break away from the legacy of 200 years of old systems and processes and infrastructure and move to a faster technology promise to, build financial prosperity across the world, make it easier for customers and consumers to not know all the stuff happening underneath the hood, but give you the applications, give you the actual value through technology. That's fintech, right? But if you peel the onion and you look behind all of these fintech companies, it still is the fact that they are still tied very much so to the legacy infrastructure. And they have to, because you have to have the banks, you need to have the financial services, you need to have the regulators, you have to all of these things in place in order for fintech to work. So while fintech has made great progress with all the big companies out there, what has not changed behind the scenes for them has been the infrastructure on which this promise can ride, this internet highway. So the blockchain fundamentally is using the internet infrastructure. So I think if you look at, what we want to solve for in the financial services space with fintech and so on, it is to make it available worldwide, globally. It is to make things cheaper, faster, more transparent. And the technology that is doing that today, it is the blockchain. So it's taking, what we had promised in terms of financial services and fintech and making it more real by using the promise of this technology called blockchain. So I think the next 5 years, and maybe not even five, even if you start from the next 2, 3, 5, 8, 10 years, I'm a firm believer that as a fundamental building block of the economy of the world and business across the world and the technical infrastructure of the world, blockchain is going to be fundamentally a component of that. Not just financial services, not just fintech, but things in, supply chain management, things that are more related to, for example, entertainment and privacy rights, content creation, in terms of e-commerce, global connectivity, and so on. So just like the internet changed the world as a fundamental technical component for everything we do back to 2000, back to 20 years ago, the blockchain is going to do that in increments as we speak. So for me, it's just a matter of time, not if, but just when we'll see a bigger um, impact on a day-to-day life with the blockchain.
Wow. Okay. Let's go back memories down lane. Your work at Circle. What was the most challenging product you worked on at Circle, and how did you navigate those challenges?
Yeah, Circle's an amazing company. The things that they're doing right now, are, like I said, the bleeding edge of technology, and again, the promise of bringing economic prosperity globally, faster, cheaper, more transparently, is what they're trying to solve for in a very regulated fashion. So I would say that, not just typical to Circle, but the things that I've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years in the stablecoin space, including back at PayPal and at Circle, it is an interesting space because as much as you believe that these tech companies can solve a problem, they can at a technical level, perhaps at a go-to-market level, but behind the scenes, we can succeed unless you play ball with regulators, policymakers, your banking partners, your financial services partners, developer ecosystems, governments, and so on. So really, it's really, important that when you are working in these spaces, these bleeding edge spaces like I have, if you believe that technology alone is going to solve the problem, you'd be naive, you'd be foolish. It's not going to happen. So I think where the complexity comes in while working at places like Circle and others in launching and building, blockchain-oriented products is exactly that. That you control only one lane, which is a product and tech, right? But all the peripheral layers, like I've been talking about, you can control, you can influence to a certain point. So I think the challenge comes in being smart and savvy in influencing those things so that what you want to build and launch can actually build and launch. So I would say, those are the things that I faced, like anybody would. And the way to get around them is what I mentioned earlier, Amir, is you have to believe in the power of the ecosystem. You cannot solve it
Yeah.
alone. You will need the bits and pieces from different places to solve what you want to solve for. So my approach for that has always been to build the right technical expertise myself, bring in people who are better than me to solve a problem so that you're not getting in blind spots. And at the same time, play in the ecosystem. It's not a zero-sum game. You have to believe that the pie is growing. And with that approach, I think people begin to call us on the same mission, and then things move forward. It's not possible to do all by yourself.
Wow. So now let's go to your next role as a mentor and educator. Sumit, you've been on advisory boards and mentored several startups. Can you share one mentorship experience that stands out?
Yeah, mentoring folks is a it's an interesting space. There's some good days where you come out laughing. There's some days where you come back taking stories of these founders that they really hit your heart. Um, so it's something that I take very seriously because you are helping somebody who's trusting you with some very close and personal um, issues and secrets that they need help with. Uh, I think for me, yes, for the companies I've worked with and mentored in the past, the startups that I mentored in the past, we talk about product and strategy and go to market and all of these business things and, crazy ideas. But I think what gets lost sometimes especially the young startups, where you've got a young founder and maybe this is the first time going on this journey, is the mental um, strength that's required to go through that journey. And in many cases, the startup founders move from one place to the other, seeking to build their company. So one thing I will say is, in one particular example, with one particular company slash founder on a personal front and a professional front, this particular founder had to relocate, to build a business in the US to the US. And I think you begin to see that, leaving your family behind, leaving your ecosystem behind, leaving everything behind, it takes a mental toll on the founders. You're working, so many hours, but it was important for me to realize that this particular founder you could see the fatigue setting in. You could see that, that edge was fading off. And I think as a mentor, your job is not just to tell them about tech, but also see those signals and catch them and then help them with it. So for me, with this particular founder, it was to help them at a personal level, with some of the things that they wanted to do with their family, something that they want to do in terms of building their old skill set. in having them over for meals at home so they feel a little bit more connected to just a family atmosphere. So for me, it became a way to help them on the personal front so that they can be better at what they're trying to do. And the other thing I remember with this particular person, this founder, was, startups are very, the world is ruthless, right? Everybody who wants to connect with a startup is looking for, what's a new sexy thing? What's in it for me? And founders can sometimes get enamored by all that glory and the glamour and begin to focus on the wrong things. So, you got to chase the connections that really mean value, that bring value to you and you can give value to. So it was a matter of helping this founder kind of refocus on those things. So on the personal front, I was able to help this person. And I would say on the professional side with this founder, it was really helping them to focus. Founders typically have ambitious ideas. They want to build 20,000 things. But how do you become so ruthless in saying, Amir, no, you're not going to do this, you're not going to do this. You got to get used to saying no, 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 till you say the right yes. So to be able to help coach mentor this founder so that they can build a company that has value is something which I think really helped them.
So my last two questions. How has startup industry evolved in the US, and what advice would you give to startup founders?
How has the startup industry evolved in the US? I've been fortunate to be here pretty much my entire adult life, education, career, my own company. But I'm a firm believer that, the US or the Silicon Valley is not the center of the world. It never was, it never will be, it'll never be. However, it is probably the most predominant force worldwide in terms of startups, right? You have many other places across the world that are absolutely exciting. They're buzzing with tech, Bangalore, you've got Tel Aviv, you've got some parts of Europe. Latin America is buzzing with a lot of technology. The Middle East is. So I would be foolish to say that, this is the center of the world. But yes, what happens here drives the world predominantly. So I would say that, a lot of changes that I've seen in the startup world I would say it has been mostly in the last 10 years. I would say from the 2000s when I started my career, it was the upcycle, right? Infrastructure for the internet, then the internet and the dot-com came around, and then you had the fintech revolution, then the Web 2, Web 3, and so on. It was all a very positive journey. But the last 10 years was when we began to have some ups and downs in the economy worldwide and in the US. And I think this is where things began to change most in the last 5 years, including post-COVID and during COVID, is where now as a startup, you just cannot assume that you can just get out there with an idea and it's going to work and that you're going to get funding. Investors, VCs have become very clear in their demands and asks that show us value ahead of showing growth. Before, if I come and say, I mean, this is my growth projection for the next 5 years, 8 years, it's a great space. You might say, yeah, it looks great. Here's the funding, right? Build a team, let's go do it. So I think that appetite for risk here in the US has always been the highest. That's a big differentiator between the US and other places still. So that drives a lot of innovation and funding. But the thing that has changed is that funding has become tighter. It's become more tied to actual value delivered goals. You're going to get VCs and VCs and investors saying many, many, many more no's till they see value and delivery before they say, oh, you know what, growth is good. So I think that's one big change. And then from the founders, uh, they have to obviously adjust to this reality that you just can't go there and go to Sand Hill Road in Palo Alto and expect a check. It's not going to happen. So I would say that's one big change in the last couple of years. But in terms of evolution, I would say that this is still absolutely where the action happens to be. But again, um, it's very clear that the tech revolutions are happening. What I call this is diffusion of innovation that's happening. The last 20 years have seen innovation being diffused. So while we're here in this amazing place called the Silicon Valley, like I have my tentacles in conversations across the world. So those things are really, really beginning to become a lot more visible to me.
Wow. Okay. Sumit, who has been your role model, mentor, or has influenced you from the professional world?
Oh, wow. I wish I could say there's one particular person, but I would say that, I am who I am and where I am. It's a sum total of all of these things that you go through. Um, it's a function of experiences for the most part. Um, it is a function of, definitely some people that you meet along the way and who guide you. But I think for me, it's been lessons learned from several people that have got me to where I am. And, family has been probably the most important influencer in my career, right from my dad all the way to, my wife and my daughter. And we come from a family of educators, professionals, doctors and so on. Very typical Indian thing. But having seen the ambition and the drive in every single person in the family who encouraged me has been instrumental. But I would say, in jobs specifically, one of my managers, some of the things you learn could be 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and they stick with you. It's not always a fact that what's the most recent thing you learn. I think for me, the biggest lesson I've learned, two lessons from some previous managers through work. One is progress over perfection. I was always aiming for, it's got to be perfect, it's got to be perfect, it's got to be perfect. But then you realize that, perfection delayed is denying value. You're better off with progress over perfection. So I think I've really adopted that in my career and my personal life in the last, many years is one lesson. And the second thing is that risk appetite, right, in my career. Again, I'd be foolish to say that I was born as an entrepreneur, that I was born as a risk taker. I come from a more traditional family where job was the main thing to do. But then over the years, you realize that, you have no choice, at least in my case,
Mm.
because I seek disruption, that I have to be a bigger, better, more savvy risk taker. So for me, that lesson learned from a few mentors at work was that, take the chance and see what happens. Take the chance on you and take a chance on the other people around you. Because in many cases, you're hired to do those things, but you don't, just being afraid. So it's almost incumbent on you to take that risk so the others can also prosper. So I would say that, it's been a combination of, definitely my dad, my parents, my family, um, who've been mentors along the way, but at work, definitely progress over perfection and having a healthy, balanced risk appetite. Those two lessons that I learned from former managers have really helped me cultivate a faster, more meaningful path for myself.
Wow. Okay. So my last question, Sumit, for your professional journey around, teaching has been close to your heart. So how has this journey been and what inspired you to become an educator?
Again, life is funny, you don't expect yourself to be doing certain things, but things happen and some things are just serendipitous. So for me, I would say that being able to help people, being able to serve, is something that I've just grown up with. It's something that comes more naturally to me, right from being in school and then in colleges and all the degrees that I have and work. I genuinely believe in the goodness of man. I genuinely believe that people will do good. And I also genuinely believe that I have a role to play in maximizing potential. So I would say that some of these things, naturally have helped me be a leader, not by title, but just through the work I do. And it has allowed me to just build that muscle to coach, mentor, educate, and teach, even without being a teacher, without even being, a faculty member. And so that innate strength and skill set has developed over the years. My entire family, there's, I would say, like 60% of the people are educators, including my dad, my mom, two of my sisters, a lot of my cousins, and everybody. So some of that comes naturally to me. But then, like I always say, it's some things are created, some things are more learned along the way. Some things you're born with, some things are created. And in the last couple of years, more specifically, I would say in the last 8, 9 years, while I was, climbing the corporate ladder, that responsibility comes on you to become not just, good in your function and trade, but also take everybody else along with you to coach and mentor. So that became a driving factor for me to, put a lot of emphasis on sharpening up my skills in coaching, teaching, mentoring, educating. And also along the way, folks came and said, hey, you know what? You'd be really good at doing this course at this. Can you go help this university? So I began to tiptoe into that at the Marshall School of Business at USC in Los Angeles. That's how it started. I was a student there as an MBA student. Um, and then a couple of years ago, someone came and said, you know what, you need to be teaching in a more serious manner. And there's this opportunity in Barcelona and in Bangkok. And I was like, you want me to teach in these universities? I didn't believe it. But, like I said, the risk taking, right? And progress or perfection. I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. So that led me down this path of becoming more structured in my approach to having this educator part as a career, along with building my company and startup and being an entrepreneur. So it's been a fun ride. I've taught at many places already. There's some interesting things that are happening which I can't talk about right now, but maybe in the next 2 months they'll be more public. That I'm extremely excited about what we're doing at Evoke Impact with some premier institutions and organizations actually in India and the Middle East.
Wow. Okay. So let's go to the next round and understand Sumit as a person. Tell us about your family and your formative years, Sumit.
Yeah, absolutely. Family has definitely always been and will be my number one priority. Work is work. We work so we can have a good life versus the other way around. So I'm a firm believer that, if your personal nuclear unit at home is strong and stable as can be with the support that you have, then you can have a good life. And, I've been blessed with, very ambitious but very supportive parents. Uh, they both have had a very illustrious career. They worked in education at the government and the United Nations for many years across the world. I was born in the Middle East, like I said, lived in India, lived in different countries. So my parents were traveling for work to quite a great degree. And we always had folks in my house coming from, different countries, from Asia, from Africa, from the US and Europe. So right from the time when I was a kid, I got exposed to world cultures, to diversity, to travel, and to having a bit of an open mindset. And I think that's something that I've carried with me throughout my life. And I think that's been probably the biggest value I've drawn from, family. So my formative years were very, I would say, blessed to have seen all of these things, having lived in different countries with this exposure. I have three siblings. My eldest sister and the second one, they live in Canada. My third sister is my twin sister. She's in a corporate career like I have. We're all in somewhere fashion, either in medicine, in corporate, or in teaching. My wife is in medicine as well. She teaches a doctor of audiology. So she works at one of the biggest hospitals here in the Bay Area. And I have one daughter, I have one kid. And she just started studying business and cognitive science at the Kelly School of Business in Indiana University, where it is minus 20 degrees centigrade right now as we speak. So she's freezing out there. Extended family is everywhere. I've got roots in many parts of the world. But formative years were, filled with a lot of laughter, a lot of growth, um, you know, growing up in different countries and really absorbing what it means to be what I call, just being a global citizen. Um, yeah, so I would not change anything that I had.
Wow. Okay. So Sumit, If you had to describe your ideal weekend getaway, what would it look like?
Oh, I love the beaches. I would love to just for a weekend get away to a beach. I love to hike, do some of the physical activities on the beach, hiking and a bunch of other things during the mornings. I love food. I'm a foodie. I love to barbecue. So the evenings will be with friends and family with a lot of music. I love music. I listen to different kinds of music. So, barbecuing, bonfires, kind of wind down the evening with some good food, good company, some good wine, and then do the same thing over and over again. So, for me, it's the water makes me happy. I'm not a very good swimmer, but for some reason, I love the water. Um, so yeah, a beach weekend getaway is what makes me happy.
Wow. Okay. Sumit, what's a lesser known fun fact about you that surprises people?
A lesser known fun fact about me. So I'm ambidextrous. I'm literally, use both hands equally, and I think people kind of note that, or when they find out about it, they're like, "Really? Are you just making that up?" And I'm no. I was a left-handed person, growing up, and then for some reason, somehow I changed to right. So my handwriting is pathetic because I was so good on my left and not so right. But I play racket sports. I play a lot of sports, and there's a lot of physical activity as part of my regimen. So I play all racket sports with my left hand, but then I write with my right, a lot of things with my right. I don't know if you noticed, but all the coffee I was drinking was with my left hand, but everything is my right. So I think that's a fun fact about me, and the fact that I'm a twin, our twin sister, is always exciting to people. Um,
Yes.
so yeah, I would say those two things are interesting to know.
Wow. Okay. What's one hobby or passion project you have picked up recently?
Hobby or passion project. What I won't call Evoke Impact a project, but it's definitely a passion that has come up in the last few years. And again, all the work that we do is great, but the motivation and the passion behind it is very visible that I do want to drive that impact and bridge the skills gap through, helping startups and companies and so on. But I wouldn't call that a project. But I would say more recently, what I picked up is I began learning Spanish. Um,
Hmm.
and Duolingo, for those of you who are listening, I would say it's, in my opinion, one of the best consumer apps ever built, period. It is a fantastic product. Um, it's a way to learn languages and make it fun. So during COVID is this when this began, to be honest. I live in California. I've been here like almost 25, 27 years, and there's a huge population that speaks Spanish here. I'm teaching in Barcelona, in Spain. So, over the last 3, 4 years, it was like, what, maybe I should start learning Spanish. And I had a streak of almost like 450 days in the app learning 10, 20 minutes a day. That streak broke, and I've never replicated it, but I truly enjoy learning new things, and learning Spanish is something that I'm trying to do. I'm not very good at it just yet, but it is something which really, it kind of, it juggles your other part of your brain away from your work, and it makes you grow in different ways, and it helps. So I would say that's one thing that's I picked up in the last couple of years, and I'm actually enjoying it.
Wow. Okay. So, Sumit, how do you unwind after tackling complex challenges in fintech or blockchain?
Oh wow. How do I unwind after tackling fintech, blockchain typical challenges? I think it's important to take a breath. You know, after you've kind of taken these massive tasks and responsibilities which are difficult. And all of us are working in careers and businesses. We're trying to solve difficult problems. And even if you're in a simple business, there will be difficult days, no doubt about it. For me, yes, blockchain and fintech happens to be where I operate or have operated, but it's not different from people who have other challenges. But I would say, I think it's important that, I do believe, and this also goes back to how my leadership style has evolved over the years, is you have to celebrate the little wins. When you're playing hard, you play hard, right? And when you're working hard, you're working hard. When you're playing hard, you play hard. But along the way, you have to understand that there will be a lot more failures than successes. And the same thing is true for me in my space and, what I do in fintech and blockchain and other things that I've done and in my business. No day is going to be a victory lap. But what I've realized is you need to have those special moments that you build with your team and bond over failure or success and celebrate it, right? So unwinding after difficult days in what you do, you have to be able to step away from that and just enjoy what you actually accomplished or what's coming. And the second thing for me that's really important that helps you kind of unwind and break away is I put a huge premium on physical mental fitness. Um, and I know this has become a cliche these days around mental fitness, but I think that I can only be as good as I want to be or I need to be tomorrow if I take care of my mind and body. And so, I make time and space for working out. I play a couple of sports, I work out 2, 3 times in a week. I hike quite a bit. So for me, that's my way to really replenish my body and my mind. So my way to unwind, whether it's, fintech or blockchain or Web3, AI, evoke impact, whatever, is to really step back, enjoy those fruits of labor, enjoy the fruits of failure. But then, just expending physical energy for me helps me unwind as well. It's a combination of those things.
Wow. Okay. So, Sumit, do you have a favorite book or podcast that inspires you as a leader?
So I listen to a lot of things, but I would say the one thing that has really stuck in my head in the last uh, couple of years is a book called Sapiens by Noah Al-Hariri. It's a pretty famous book. It's out there. Noah Al-Hariri is a prolific writer, and he brings history, technology, philosophy, evolution, eclectic thinking all in one package that really makes you wonder, how we got to where we got to. And this book, Sapiens, is exactly that. There's a few others that he's written. I highly recommend that, your readers pick them up. But I love history. I love evolution. I'm an absolute geek in figuring out and learning, how the hell did the stars come out? How did anthropology happen? How was the planet born? How was humans become the dominant species on the planet? And how did we begin to dominate the world, the planet, and the ecosystem and the universe? So, Sapiens is a book that talks about all of those things, going back millions and billions of years to where we are
Mhm.
today. And it makes you realize that, you are just literally, like a speck of dust in a speck of dust in this universe. And there's a reason we are here. Um, but the one thing that I always take away from this book, and I go back to it, and I just kind of browse through a few pages every now and then, is that, as much as things may seem like magic and miracles, in most cases, they're not accidents and magic and miracle. There's a method to how we got to where we are. We became human, Homo sapiens, and sapiens, the dominant creature species on the planet ever, through certain steps along the way. So most things are not an accident. There's a sustained path along the way. So that's a big takeaway for me from this book, in addition to all the knowledge that comes. So yeah, I think that's one book that I really, really enjoy, and um, I read a fair bit, but this one is kind of helps me break away from, work, 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 and okay, let's just sink into how did this world come to be? How did we become who we became? So great book, Sapiens.
Wow. Okay. My last two questions for your personal journey round. What's a guilty pleasure TV show or movie that always cheers you up?
Oh boy. I play football, or as they call it, soccer here. I'm a foodie. I love watching cooking videos, food videos. became a mixologist over the COVID period. I love cocktails and I actually mix
Mhm.
cocktails. So that creative side of sports and food is something I really enjoy, looking at, watching on, well, as YouTube or TV. I don't watch much of regular TV. But yeah, I do geek out on, videos on history and politics and sometimes, whether it's AI or quantum physics, I do that. But I would say, those things I really enjoy. And I would say it's something that really makes me laugh, makes it really funny sometimes is some of the sitcoms out there, not sitcoms, sorry, the late night shows with Jimmy Kimmel. I catch that. Um, Kapil Sharma show in India just cracks me up completely. And I believe that the stand-up comedy scene in India right now is absolutely brilliant. It has really
Great,
come
great.
so far. So I catch a lot of those. But that's something that helps me kind of get away from work, work, work. And that's my guilty pleasures to do those things, to watch those things.
Wow. It's beautiful. So I'm inviting you to have a pan since you're passionate about mixing cocktails. So there is another coffee speaker. His name is Arush Khanna, and he's also passionate about making cocktails. And he's based in Delhi and has invited me to come and check out his cocktails. So what I'm
Oh, very
proposing
good.
is both of you and have a conversation on the art of cocktails with
Oh, yeah,
uh, maybe the movie of Tom Cruise.
that's right. Happy to.
Yeah. Okay. My last two questions. What legacy would you like to leave behind, Sumit?
Oh, wow. Never thought of that, to be honest.
Mm.
I think, like I said, and I genuinely mean this, for me, what I do is a means to an end. My life is not that I will be working and doing this for the rest of my life. The reason I do what I do is because I truly believe that I have to. It's my responsibility to make that difference that I seek to make through my work, through my company. So the legacy I want to leave behind, honestly, is, for I'd say my family first, and then of course, everybody else around it, is that you made a difference. And it's very interesting, sometimes when your kids look at you and they say, "Oh, wow, I really believe that what you're doing, Dad, is it's incredible. It's making a difference." And they have this undying faith, blind faith in what you're trying to do. And then they take those nuggets from you, whether it's risk taking or whether it's the things you do, and then they imbibe those in their lives to become better in what they do. So for me, that truly is, legacy for me. It's not about the money or whatever you leave behind physically and tangibly, but it's when you walk away and there's these coffee conversations that people have, right? It is about the difference that you made. So that's really what it is for me. It's anything material to me is exciting. I'm happy to have it, love it, but that's not what I'm aiming for. It's exactly what I'm doing with you is when I have these coffee conversations or when people have conversations when I'm not there. It is about, oh, that's exactly what he did, and this is what he left behind. So that's what I'm looking for.
Beautiful. So my last, uh, another reflective question, a googly one. Describe Sumit in one line.
That is the that is the googly. Um, in one line, I think it's going to be hard, but I would say that, I would say, Sumit is an optimist, and
Mhm.
the final chapter is to be written. Or as they say in, Hindi movies, right? Abhi picture baki hai mere dost, right? So
Beautiful,
that's where I'm headed.
beautiful, beautiful. Let's go and have some now fun, the rapid fire round. Uh, your go-to comfort food.
Tandoori and Mediterranean grilled meats.
Wow. Uh, food you love from India.
Who do I?
food you love from India.
Food that I love from India, chole bhature, man. I'm a Punjabi. You can't do without chole bhature.
Okay. Your favorite food show.
My favorite food show. I love watching Hell's Kitchen with Gordon Ramsay.
Wow.
I think he's an
Your
insane genius.
wow. Okay. Uh, your favorite city to work in.
My favorite city to work in. I have absolutely loved working in Barcelona and Bangkok. I would say those two cities.
Wow. Your dream vacation destination.
I want to go on an African safari. That's my next thing to
Wow.
do.
Wow. Beautiful. Okay. One word to describe your leadership style.
Builder.
Wow. Okay. If you could meet any tech innovator, past or present, who would it be?
Oh, wow. If I could meet any past tech innovator, who would that be? I was reading about is it Ramanujan, the mathematician, in some kind of
Mm.
documentary, and just the life that he went through, and there's many more examples too. I would love to meet someone like that, which is completely the stark opposite of who I am, but it's like the things they do or he did. Um, so from an academic, mathematician, you could even call him a technologist in a way. That would be one.
Wow. Okay. Uh, favorite place from San Francisco to visit.
So I said one more time.
Favorite place you recommend our viewers out there to visit in San Francisco.
My newest favorite in the San Francisco area is this little area close to San Francisco called Pacifica. It's very close to
Mhm.
San Francisco. Little quaint town, amazing hiking. It's right by the beach. I have a favorite coffee shop there, by the way. It's called Soul Grind. Um, Fantastic food, fantastic coffee. You can just go there, grab your coffee, do a 3, 4, 5 hour hike right by the Pacific Ocean. And funny enough, one of the most famous Taco Bells in the world is on that beach. And that
Wow.
particular cantina is called Taco Bell Cantina. For example, they serve cocktails, which is very rare for Taco Bell. So I almost sound like I'm promoting and advertising for Taco Bell here, but I love that spot for many reasons, and it's my newest favorite spot in the city or close to the city.
Wow. Beautiful. Uh, tea or coffee?
Tea, chai. Even
Okay.
though
That.
my cup says coffee, it's got tea. Cheers.
You're a morning person or night owl?
Night owl, 100%.
Okay. So you did well. And here's your New Year gift, which will be autographed and sent to your address in San Francisco.
Thank
So,
you.
friends,
Thank you.
it was a lovely conversation having with a global citizen, Sumit Ahuja, who transitioned himself from uh, working in corporate world and now with his startup. He is, what do you say, a force to reckon in blockchain, Web3, and fintech. Anyone out there, how US startup industry works. This is the episode, and he has been contributing to society through his teaching initiatives and mentoring. So, friends, you all can wear multiple hats. This is the episode where being into disruption, innovation, and managing his family, going for his beaches and his plans for dream vacation destinations. So many things to get inspired from Sumit Ahuja's Coffee Conversation episode. And his startup name is also very unique. Evoke Impact. So he's here
That's right.
to impact from his impactful journey life. And we look forward to more. See, there is one more episode which you have to look forward, where his passion of mixing cocktails. So we would be having fun, and but we can't promise to have it in person. Maybe it can happen. So, like this, there
We
are
will.
over 300 plus episodes of the Coffee Corner Show. Subscribe, and you get inspired, learn from them, and be like them. And if you want to be featured like Sumeet Ahuja, visit our website or ask one of your friends or ask one of the coffee speakers to invite you, and our team would invite you and have over a cup of coffee, have coffee conversation. So enjoy with another speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Amir.